So 2 things you could do to a Bronco to make them awesome. I built this truck when I was like 24. And you just pull it out.
Ooh.
And now it runs like a 2-stroke dirt bike.
Mike is a little frustrated because he's over talking about his Bronco, but we're not over talking about it because it's a special, cool Bronco.
Getting totally rebuilt.
Why?
Well, it's been this way for almost 10 years. I've ran this truck. I built this truck when I was like 24. I'm going to be 35 this year.
Damn! We got to go through the history of it. Are you ready? Let's start.
Yeah.
When you got it, was it stock?
Yeah.
Did you know it was going to be like this?
No.
Okay.
I built this truck twice. So the first time I built it was like the standard Bronco thing, you know. I built like a bolt-on rear shock mount. It was all powder coated, deburrs, bolt-on engine cage. I built all this stuff, you know. Many have come and gone since then, if you know what I mean. So I took it out once or twice the way it was, and I was not happy with it, so I brought it back in the garage and cut it in half, and it became what you see today. If you look at like the beams and stuff, all those parts are, you know, hand drawn and cut on the bandsaw and TIG welded and
yeah, I want to get into that though. So
yeah,
you know, you had a good relationship with Matt Walrath, right? Yeah. And he kind of taught you a bit of stuff.
Right.
And he was a huge inspiration for me and just always. I mean, he's an iconic fabricator. And
great fabricator, yeah.
His designs and, you know, his execution on stuff and his process with things and his fabrication is bar none. You know, it's
pretty fantastic, yeah.
And so when I saw this in your driveway 8 years ago, and it's the same thing. All the craft on here is like special. You could have done stuff simpler, and you didn't. You did it in a way that's special and that has design to it. If you just look at, I mean, we'll get into the engineering on this because I've never seen that already.
So the steering's actually a Nestor part.
So that's from Nestor at New Line?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, like your knuckles, did you do the knuckles?
No, and you know who built those was Flight Industries.
Okay. But so all the beams.
The knuckles are only a few years old. It had stock uprights on it forever.
How hard could you push the truck with stock uprights?
I never had a problem.
Dana 44s, right?
Yeah. I never had a problem. So this thing's just like a tank, and you know, you'd be hard pressed to find any piece of plate on it that's thicker than 1/8 inch.
Yeah, well, that's your style too, right? Yeah. It's kind of that race style, like just build it, design it right, engineer it right where it's strong so you don't have to use excessive plate.
Right.
You just do it where it counts.
Yep.
And that's a Dana 44 beam, right?
Yep.
And it's cut and turned?
Yep.
Okay.
But it's not cut and turned in the traditional way, which most people cut the lower ball joint out and move it out. The beam's pie cut, so it's widened here to 2 3/4, I think. And then it's like maybe 1 3/4 at the top.
Okay, so it's a double hit.
Yeah, so basically the beam's cut in half and then the section is replaced.
And that's giving it ride height or lift, right?
That's to compensate the camber for the lift. So, and the truck's set up with a really low ride height, so it has a lot of camber. But I found when I started racing it that it went around turns. The more camber I put in it, the better it went around turns. It handles real good like that.
Sure. So you have a big weave on that part of the beam.
That's because I wrecked this truck into a rain rut one time at nighttime.
Yeah.
And it bent the beam right there, so I just cut that section out and replaced it with a new piece of beam.
Copy that.
If you look further up the beam, you can see the other repair somewhere.
Hiding deep in the depths there.
Oh no, maybe it's just the whole piece. Yeah, it's the whole piece.
Yeah, I think you grafted that piece on, and then you can see like there's overlay plates right here.
Yep.
You know, just on the crucial areas where it would want to pull apart.
Right.
Uniball on the pivots. And then this is a working 4-wheel drive.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it looks like there's just like a sleeved chrome ollie piece for your axle extension.
Yep.
And that's worked out the whole time, huh?
Yep. Never had a problem.
That's awesome.
Yeah. This truck, you know, at the time when I built it with the money I had and the parts I could afford.
Yep.
Which I really couldn't afford.
Sure.
You know, which required creative financing. Like, I got all the shocks from Deja Vu Strip Club Pro 2. And,
Okay. The one on Holt?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They used to run a Pro 2.
Yeah.
And so homie was parting it out or whatever, and at the time I drove like this old crappy Toyota Corolla, and I got rear-ended in it driving to work one day, and the insurance company cut me a check, and I took that check over to Deja Vu and bought the shocks for this thing.
And these shocks are sway away 3-inch coilovers?
They're a combination.
Oh, they're Custers or what? They look
They're
like Custers.
Cooster, King, sway away,
Yeah.
all the stuff.
They're hybrids.
So, yeah, they're hybrids. So.
They're hybrids.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just like all kinds of details, like even that, you know, like the dimple dyed. That's a factory valence, right?
Yeah,
with
factory.
dimple dyes in it.
Yeah. I haven't driven this truck for almost a year now.
Uh-huh.
So the last time I took it out,
Caught on fire.
yeah, shock hose blew off and it caught on fire.
Did it get on the header?
Yeah.
Yep.
And the truck, you know, like I said, I'm gonna rebuild it. Everything, and I haven't prepped it in like 2 or 3 years.
Sure.
Probably 3 years. So everything's pretty rough and blown out. Like, it needs a rear gear. It needs, you know, it needs a full prep. So
I just, I can see past that, and that's why, like, I remembered seeing this because this was a special truck, and like even the details, like your cooler mount that's integrated into your radiator, your upper radiator cap or tray.
Yeah.
You know, and that's all bolt on with little 12 points. Like,
Yeah.
there's these really cool details that you took your time on because you were enjoying building it.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's what makes it so unique. I mean, just because it looks dirty or whatever, it's still like, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
They call that good bones.
Good bones.
Yeah. good
There you
bones.
go.
So my favorite part though
Yeah.
is the front clip. So you remove this fastener.
Yeah.
And this one on the front of the frame rail. This one right here.
Yeah.
So these are just threaded into the frame,
Yeah.
F13s. And so you pull those two front ones off, and those two off, and the whole grill, bumper, clip,
Yeah.
radiators,
Yeah. So that whole thing that makes it all serviceable.
all comes off. Then the collector comes off and the exhaust comes off from there with just spring clamps and a hose clamp here.
Yep.
That all comes off, and then you have access to everything. And then obviously you can already tell that like the engine cage all bolts onto the chassis.
That's what I was going to cover next. So same thing, tube connectors.
Uh-huh.
And then if you look, you know, on your engine cage down to the chassis where it goes to the frame, you have big bolt-on areas here. You know, and then tube connector to the cage too. That's the one thing I noticed with this whole truck, and that's why I can't wait to get to the back too, because in the rear chassis, it's very simple, but it's like very engineered.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
where it like, makes sense, and it's very interesting to look at.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, when did you make the move? I remember when the Bronco was down for a bit and you did this. You came back hot with this thing.
Yeah.
With the 8-to-1.
Right.
What was the choice with this? Like, why did you go with this?
I just wanted to do it, and it was, you know, a design engineering challenge for me at the time.
Yeah.
So I wanted to learn how to do it.
I love that.
I kind of have a problem that like things intrigue me when I get to learn
Sure.
and figure it out, and then once I figure it out, I'm over it. I'm like, all right, what's the next thing?
I think that's a fabricator thing.
Yeah.
You know.
So that was that. I learned a lot, and this thing, you know, the primaries, which are the tubes here.
Yes,
for
that
people
go to
don't
the
know.
cylinders.
So this is called primary.
Yeah.
So the primaries are equal length in the rotary fire, and the thing made a ton more horsepower once we put these headers on it. It actually went totally lean. So once we got it back on the rollers and turned up the fuel, it made 75 more foot-pounds of torque at the tire.
Yeah.
And now it runs like a two-stroke dirt bike. So
Yeah, and it's kind of your thing with this. It's your trademark on sound for this truck. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it is. You know, I remember when you went to, what was the race they had at the fairgrounds in Orange County?
Super Stadium trucks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember that was hitting that
Right.
double,
Uh-huh.
that crossover double,
Yeah.
and that noise, and just it's pretty iconic.
Yeah.
That's 1446 Wayne Evans.
So with the 8-to-1, obviously they call it 8-to-1 because you have all of your, you know, if it's a V8, then it would be an 8-to-1. If it was a V10, you'd call it a 10-to-1.
Sure.
It's just your primaries and the number of cylinders going into one, collecting all at once, and then dumping together. And then the thing with building these, and that's why like there's there's not a uniform that looks visually like it's uniform, but it's uniform because it's rotary fire. So the way that the engine is firing is consistent with the, you know, the order which they go into the collector.
Correct.
So it almost cyclones, it pulls.
A normal American V8 fires dirty. That's what they refer to it as. Is that as in one cylinder on one bank fires and then cylinder on this bank fires.
Yeah.
So in order to properly scavenge, we'll talk about scavenging. Scavenging is when this cylinder fires, the exhaust pulse comes down in the collector, and then the cylinder next to it fires.
Yeah.
And that pulse comes down into the collector. And what ends up happening is the first pulse, the vacuum pulls the second pulse out with it.
Yeah.
So
it's a teamwork thing.
Yeah. So basically, by pairing the banks left and right to the center here, it can properly scavenge and use those exhaust pulses
Yep.
correctly to pull the exhaust out. So
it's like a vacuum that's helping it work.
correct.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So, and there's a little bit of math involved in that with the diameter and the length of the tube.
Yeah.
And you know, when they fire into the collector is when the length of the tube is important, because the exhaust pulse comes from the cylinder head
Yeah.
and has to meet in the collector at the right time to pull the next one out.
Major
So,
science.
NASA.
Science rules.
And that's also what makes the sound, right?
That's also what makes the sound,
that
yeah.
sound is an engineered sound.
Correct.
You can't just put this on there and then, you know, put primaries to it and expect that unless it's hitting right.
Right. And you'll see like other 8-in-1 systems where it's just like 4 cylinders on the one side and 4 cylinders on the other side. They kind of sound like doo-doo.
Dana 44 outers, right? On your hubs, and then this is auto locking.
Yeah, I keep automatic hubs on it because A, I'm lazy and I don't want to get out when I put it in 4-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And B, it's the weak link. So if I want to be greedy with the throttle and stay in the throttle in 4-wheel drive, it blows the hub out.
Oh, nice. That's a great idea.
Instead of some of the other more expensive parts.
Sure. Robbie Gordon wheels, bead locks, real bead locks with 12 points in them.
Of course, fam.
Not black oxide 12 points so they don't rust.
Don't look too close.
Well, they're just, that's my favorite wheel, and I don't feel biased. I just like the old Robbie wheels.
Yeah.
So that's your exit. Is
That's
that
one exit.
Okay, yeah, because it is on a cutoff, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it fit better before I wrecked this corner.
Copy that. So that is your primary flow, but you can block it there and then send it to be quiet guy.
Yep. It goes down there and through 2 MagnaFlow mufflers underneath the truck.
Yeah, and then it gets really muffled. Obviously you see your radius arm, big plated radius arm. I like that you have that thick strike pad for the bump where it looks like a 1/2 inch piece of solid stock. I like that, that's cool. But yeah, so radius arm right to your lower link pivot, all integrated into the same unit, which is always like, that's the dream cool setup.
Yeah. You like the skid plate down there?
Yeah, let's.
Should have been in the truck when I hit that big old rock.
That's metal forming, you know?
Yeah.
That's hard. Not a lot of people can do metal forming with 1/8 inch aluminum.
Dude, that was tight. So I like this because obviously it ties the front and rear suspension together, but it's also a nice jack pad.
Oh, it is, huh?
Right?
So.
Tell you, don't look too close.
Well, it's all good. It's just, it's different and it's custom and it's thought out, you know?
Yeah.
So this tube connector here, that's a chassis tube connector, right?
Yeah, that goes back to the main part of the chassis of the truck.
So big 2-inch tube, looks like it's sleeved, right?
Yeah, this is 095.
Oh, okay, of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
The upper link is heat treated 120 wall, 1.75 inch.
Gotcha. So that's a 3-link too, so it's not a traditional 4-link.
No.
Right, and now, was that just kind of a period thing, or would you have 4-linked it now, or?
Yeah, when I rebuild it, I'm gonna 4-link it.
Okay, and
just out of simplicity.
Simplicity. Okay.
Yeah. But never had an issue with that.
Yeah.
I've done dumb stuff in it.
Stock transfer case, right?
Yeah.
Little tiny drive shaft.
Is it?
I mean, I don't know.
I guess.
It's still nice, you know?
Yeah.
That's just a shorty, I think. But you know what? I don't go under Broncos, and I don't know. So
I don't
that
know either.
could be commonplace. You can see your sheet metal up there all kind of tubbed properly where that rear axle bumps. It goes, tubs up into that area up there. What does this stand off for?
That's for when we put it on the 2-post lift.
Okay.
So one of the arms for the post lift goes there.
That's great.
And the other one goes in the body mount here.
Oh, copy. Okay.
So that's, you know, because these things with beams and links are really hard to pick up on the post
Sure.
lift. So we just call that the dicks.
Okay.
We weld dicks on stuff so we can pick them up.
The hanging dicks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't noticed, it's that clean camo, and then if you go deep, it's that cat hitter. You know? That's what I love about it. I feel like this is an all-inclusive vehicle. Like you kind of can do whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah.
So
I built this little rack before we went to Mexico the last time out, and it just has a couple quick pins. You can pull it out.
Ooh.
And you know, you put your beverages in here.
Yeah.
And then over here, you know, you got
The wash station.
Wash your hands or whatever.
Definitely. That's always something I like with off-road trucks is if I've always thought about putting just fresh water to wash your hands.
Yeah.
Or wash your face, because if you get stuck somewhere and then you're like, dude, you're just ruined, and you just want to get in your car and be comfy again.
Yep.
And it's like what you would do just to be able to wash your hands and wash your face.
Yeah. So this thing, you know, just a little history. This truck, when I was almost done building it, I kind of stood back. I'm like, wow, I can't believe I have this truck that I built in my garage, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, it's all chromoly, it's linked,
TIG welded.
It's got a LS, yeah, TIG welded. I'm
Yeah.
like, I never thought I would own anything like that because it's just kind of unobtainable with, you know, the money I made and
Sure.
whatever. But so when it was almost finished, you know, I was building this truck to be a pre-runner for me and the certified race team, so we could just go out and use it.
Yeah.
But then when it was almost done, I got a bug up my ass to go race it, and we started racing like Lucas Oil Short Course, Robbie Gordon Stadium trucks. So the point I'm trying to make with this is that it never got totally finished as like a finished pre-runner.
Gotcha.
It was always just like we put it together enough to go race it, and then it stayed like that. So like it's not sealed up real well. Like you can see I've tried to use duct tape to like seal up around the fuel cell. Like it's just not a totally finished pre-runner truck. And then obviously the spare tire goes there, which it works to fit the tire there, and the coolers and everything shuts, and you can roll up the window and it's all good. But I hate the tire being there because I can't see out of the rearview mirror.
Sure.
So when I rebuild it, that's going to change. I'm going to change a lot of the layout and then really focus on sealing the truck up really well. So that's kind of the next step. So
When do you anticipate doing your rebuild?
I don't know. You know, I haven't really driven this thing for about a year because I've been just focused on the business and everything going with that. So, so at some point in time, I can have the money and time to work on this thing. So,
Sure.
So
On the Bronco note, what do you think the best upgrade if someone just had a Bronco and they wanted to just start getting after it with a Bronco? What's the most solid kind of setup they can start with? What would you do first?
So if money and time were no object, the first thing I would, because Broncos are awesome stock. Like I had a stock one. It was my most favorite, fun to drive vehicle in the dirt. So two things you could do to a Bronco to make them awesome: put a steering quickener in it and put an LS motor in it, and the thing would just be awesome.
Right off the bat.
Just with 33s and a steering quickener and LS, you know, that'd be badass.
And a steering quickener for people is like, it's something you do inline from your steering
Show 'em
box.
one, yeah.
Oh, cool, it's on there?
Yeah.
Sweet. And then I noticed too with yours, you're a no ram assist on here.
Correct, yeah.
And that does fine?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see that. Steering box is hiding down here, but the shaft goes up here, and then there's a steering quickener on the back side of this tab that's off the chassis, and then this shaft and the U-joint is going into the steering column. And what that does is
it speeds up your steering a lot. So my truck is in the seated position, is full lock full lock.
Yeah. Yeah. Mike, thank you.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks for doing this.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you guys.
So like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
MCRD.
MCRD.
Actually, check out mcracedesign.com.
MC Race Design. All right. Thanks, guys. Later.
Really falls. Does the cat have a name? Lewis.
Lewis.
All right, that it is.
Hold on, let me get the style thing on.
Put that block there for you, bud. Perfect.
That was a good little.
Kept
the design in
Right, right. Yeah, definitely works.
That was good.
Perfect.